Andrew and Mark. I'm Mike Rattan. I chair this advisory committee. Like to acknowledge that we are doing our business today on the unceded traditional territory of the Sishat and the Hupetchesett First Nations. We have an agenda, and I'm hoping to go through the business part of the agenda as quickly as possible. Because really the reason for us getting together is to listen to Mark and Andrew about their plans and have them go through their plans for how they're going to work with us to get to a vision for our airport. And that's really, I think, first and foremost on everybody's minds. How can we help? How can we work towards getting that airport to where we want it to be? Whatever that's going to look like. It might take many years, but it's okay. We need to get started. So this is good. So I need a motion to approve the agenda, please, as it's been distributed.
So moved.
Okay, seconder, Penny. Any opposed to that motion? Then I declare it carried. We have the minutes that were distributed from the July 23rd meeting. They're 3 pages. Anybody see anything that caused concern? In which case I need a motion to receive those minutes, please. Dan, thank you. And a seconder, Shelley, thank you very much. Okay, and anybody have concerns with those? Okay, then I declared them motion carried. I don't believe there's any petitions, delegations, or presentations. And information report, the conflict of interest policy. Douglas, do you want to just go through why that's been included, please? So that everybody knows.
Absolutely. Mr. Chair, we have a number of committees who are comprised of both elected and appointed officials. And this committee is one such committee. We've run into a situation where we realize that the appointed officials haven't been through the same orientation process that the elected officials have been. And so some of the questions related to what it meant to be in conflict and related to the rules of in-camera meetings in particular have not been commonly understood. So very, very briefly, the policies are actually, the conflict of interest policy, now looking at 5A, is actually quite self-explanatory. And it really just is intended to point out that if a person is in a conflict of interest, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, so long as he or she conducts herself properly. And what that means is to declare that conflict and remove himself or herself from the conversation and not participate in the matter in any way. And it talks about who has what responsibility, and really the committee members must evaluate their own situation, and it is not up to, say, staff or the chair of the committee necessarily, although staff and the chair can have a role in talking about the matter and assisting the committee member, etc. So really, once you identify that you believe you're in a conflict of interest, not participating in the matter in which you have a conflict and not going back to that matter anytime or talking outside of the meetings really is the key piece of information to hang on to here. With respect to 5B, rules relating to in-camera committee meetings, there will likely be a time where we'll be talking in this committee, for example, about a legal opinion that has been provided to the regional district. And it is very important for the committee members to understand that those in-camera matters must not be talked about with anybody except for the committee members or staff, unless the committee resolves that it's part of their duties to do so. And that's not always apparent. Sometimes we think this information is out in the public domain because we're a public organization, but there are a fairly narrow set of circumstances in which we can or must go in camera, and we cite those before we go in camera. We don't have such an item today in the agenda, but once we do go in camera, unless it's raised to the public domain by a resolution of the committee, then it must stay in camera. Mr. Chair, I think that's really the two points that I wanted to cover out of those two reports. And unless there are any questions, the committee can just consider receiving the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Any questions on that, anybody? On either of those two items? In which case, I need a motion to receive those two reports, please.
So moved.
Okay, and a second by Shelley. Thank you very much. Anybody, question, Bob?
No, second.
Okay, thank you. And anybody concerned about that? Anybody opposed to that? In which case I declare the two reports received. Okay, so now we get to move to the visioning and the strategic plan part of the day. And Mark Duncan and Andrew Cuthbert are our two consultants who've been hired by the ACRD to help us through this process. And they have given us a fair amount of background. And I will, at this point, then turn the meeting over to Mark first, and let Mark kind of tell us a little bit about himself and how you're going to help us get to clarity.
Okay, can everybody hear me well enough?
Mark, I don't think I know I can't understand what you're saying, so it's possible other people will have the same problem.
Can you hear me now?
No,
You can't hear me.
I can hear you, but it's very garbled.
To speak clearly. Can you hear me now? That's interesting. How about if I go back here? Is that better?
No, I can't hear you at all. So when you're a bit closer, I can hear you. How about other people? I'm not sure, but when you're a bit closer, I can hear you enough to understand what you're saying.
For this.
Now I can't hear you at all.
Mr. Chair, I might suggest, Mark, if you can't get your microphone to work, you might also want to call in and mute your microphone and talk on the phone, and we can still see you. I don't know. Maybe.
And, what number would that be, Janice?
So if you have a number that you can call Janice on, or you could call me, I've got my phone right here, and
I can send that to you, Mark.
Okay.
Or you could call right into Zoom as well and just be registered as another call, another person.
Okay.
And that might be more effective, I might suggest.
Okay, what is the number for that?
Janice, I think that you sent the number here is 1778 907 2071. And you'll probably get asked for a webinar ID, and I'll give that to you as soon as you ask for it.
welcome, Brandy. I see your bear.
And Mark Duncan, you'll want to shut your microphone off, or else you'll get a terrible echo loop.
Meeting ID?
It is 998 5940 4930.
And I'll have to give him his participant ID. 511458.
Sorry.
511458 is the ID number. Yes. Well,
on my phone, but that's fine. I'm getting feedback.
Shut your microphone off, Mark, on your Zoom, on your computer screen. There.
Oh, no.
Janice, he doesn't appear to be logged in. Is that correct? Or like his phone doesn't seem to be connected?
I'm just unmuting him.
Okay.
Is the meeting locked, Janice, or is he in the waiting room on his phone, maybe?
No, it's a webinar, so he can access it if he's a panelist.
I see.
And I'm not sure why we can't hear him.
Can you hear me now?
The odd time.
I can hear you a bit better now.
Are you able to hear me over the phone or over the my other microphone?
I think it's still your computer microphone.
Exactly.
Yeah, we don't know why you can't come in on your phone. Usually you'd show up as a separate entity on your telephone, but it's not doing that for some reason, Mark.
It's because it's a webinar.
Oh, webinar, sorry.
I'm wondering if there's a way, I wonder if I could dial back in, would that maybe help?
You can give it a try, Mark.
Why don't we let Andrew, why don't you, we can, Andrew, jump right to the survey questions. And then I'll come back in and talk about our overall plan and some of the things we found in our interviews. And I will go out and jump back in.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine, Andrew.
Okay, great. Yeah, so thanks for making the time to hear us out, and thanks. We're excited for the opportunity to work with you on the project, and excited to just be part of the future of the Port Alberni Airport. So we've gotten underway, and as Mark said, he's already done quite a few interviews with stakeholders at the airport and existing tenants, and he's got some cool findings he'll share when he logs back in. And yeah, from those interviews, we've created a survey that we could distribute to a wider audience to potentially get more varied feedback. And I believe this was an optional item in our work plan, but we decided that it would be really helpful to supplement the interviews with a wider kind of net, basically, that through the survey. So the thinking behind the survey is that it would be distributed online primarily, and so people could log in on their phones or through their computers to fill it out, and that link could either be shared on the ACRD website or the social media channels that you guys might have. I believe you were distributed a draft version of the survey. Does everybody have
Yes.
that up? Okay, perfect. So again, like the questions were derived from concerns that were already heard through the stakeholder interviews. We'd be happy to hear if you guys have any concerns with the questions or any suggestions for new questions that you might like the answers to through this process. So any suggestions on questions to start with? if there are any suggestions or that you come up with later on too, feel free to email us after the call. We'd be happy to have a look and incorporate them.
So Andrew, oh, sorry, Penny, go ahead.
Thanks. So I'm wondering if you approached the new tenants as well with the survey?
The survey hasn't been distributed at all at this point. So it's fresh. It will be distributed to tenants and whoever you guys think it should be distributed to. That's part of some of the feedback we're hoping to get from your group today is how wide a net it should be cast.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a really silly question. I'm sorry to ask it, but under present activity, you have done glider operations air cadet training. Is air cadets like Navy cadets or Sea cadets, that kind of idea? Or what is air cadet training?
I think you've got it.
Okay.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Thank you. I just haven't heard of it before.
Shelley, you have a question?
Thank you. I just wondered under potential concerns if other people might, like me, not understand what perceived overuse of frequency 123.0 means. Like if you were.
That's the common frequency used by the pilots when they arrive at the airport.
Right. Thank you for that. I just wondered if it might, if depending on which stakeholders, if you might offer a little bit more explanation, because I would imagine most might just skip that because or guess at something that's not accurate is what I guess I was saying. But thank you for that.
We can add the words communications frequency around that.
Sounds good.
Sorry, I had the same question on that. And what would perceived overuse be? I mean, I'm frequently on New York TRACON and they're handling up to 100 aircraft at once. So I'm not sure what overuse of a frequency is.
Just to let you know where that came from, Michael, it was from the glider operators. And I think it is not an issue on the ground. But in the air, when they get at a higher altitude, that frequency is used by others in the on Vancouver Island. So that makes it hard to communicate.
Okay, it's the same with 26.7 or any of the common frequencies. The higher you get, the more splash order you're going to get from surrounding areas. But
Exactly.
I'm not really sure how that specifically applies to us over the rest of the world.
I totally agree with you. We put it in to see whether it was really an issue or not an issue.
Okay, thanks.
Are you able to hear me better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Did you finish the survey, Andrew?
No, we're still going through. We're just taking questions on the questions as they are and suggestions for new questions if there are any.
I just had a
Shelley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple things. I just wondered, and this may not be appropriate, but I just wondered if there should be an awareness question there. You know, are you aware that there is an advisory committee and that, you know, that we're even looking at developing the airport? Because I just think that it's not necessarily on the scope for most people.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that I was thinking a little bit too is that we might ask a question about what's the best way to keep you informed on developments, because, you know, and then we might have a bunch of options because, you know, it's not the same for everyone, and business people might have a different perspective, but I think it's just critical to not assume that people know A, and B, have a greater understanding of the best way of communicating with them and keeping this, you know, keeping stakeholders apprised.
Those are both excellent suggestions. I think it's not too much to add those two questions in there.
Okay, thank you. And you know, since the entire valley is at least all the property owners are helping to pay for the airport, everybody's throughout the valley's got a stake in it. So the interest is pretty broad.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, well, just going through my notes, and I think, the other question that I wanted to ask the group was that how long of a period should the survey be available for? So typically it ranges between 2 and 4 weeks usually that we make a survey available, but just wanted to put it out there when on timing with maybe your existing newsletters or communication channels.
Yeah, that was a point that I thought of when I read this, that you've written here January 1st, and I think that's a little bit early given the Christmas season that's coming upon us soon. No, I think January 15th would be a better date.
Sure.
And would the survey, Andrew, would the survey be available on the ACRD website?
Yeah. So what we'll do after we've finalized the questions is we'll put it into an online form and send a link, and then you guys can post that link wherever you feel like it should be posted.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Penny.
Thank you. So is this then being referred to regional district staff or city staff, or because it's not the members here in the committee? So who would that be sent to send out to people?
Well, yeah, I think that we would rely on your team and the regional district team a little bit to identify those distribution channels and the breadth of distribution. We can definitely send it out to the stakeholders we've already interviewed, but the catchment kind of beyond that, I think you guys are better suited to know, and you also have access to update your own website and social media channels.
So could I continue, please? Just to staff then, is that realistic timing? Sorry about the ringing.
Well, as soon as the link is live, we would send it out. We've got I don't think we have a Facebook account for this purpose yet, but the city certainly does, and we would ask our partners at the city to help distribute this. Put it on our we'd distribute it by Twitter. And we would put it on our webpage, and after that, the actual mechanics of people filling it out, et cetera, will be handled by the consultants.
Yeah.
Thank you. Penny, I was just going to suggest that it can certainly go to our communications department at the city. It has a pretty wide reach, and just to increase that availability to people to fill it out.
Great.
And Susie Quinn has a great interest in what happens to the airport as well. So as long as we let Susie know, I'm sure she'll make a little note in the paper somewhere. Penny.
Thank you. Would we also want to extend that outside of the valley and to the West Coast and get some more input from potential users?
Oh, interesting. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, we can send it out to whoever you want to get feedback from. Once the link is live, you can send it out to as many people as you want, and yeah, the more responses you receive back, then the greater. I mean, one question that we've already added to the survey that we thought would be valuable and is are you a tenant at the airport? And it would just help us tabulate, where we're getting responses from. But I think that given your desire to have a wider reach, expanding that question to include, like, are you Vancouver Island based? Are you on the mainland? Are you in Port Alberni? It might be valuable.
Yeah. Sorry, Penny?
Thanks. So I'm really interested to see if we could get the most out of this survey, trying to see what possibilities there are for our airport. Over the many years that I've been associated with the regional district, because the airport is in my regional area, I've had a lot of people come to me with different ideas over the past of different development opportunities. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a local response or if, you know, I'm hoping that you would have the connections outside of our immediate area to be able to draw in opportunities that we could actually think about, that we could promote or try to engage with different aeronautical development. So I'm hoping that that could be a part of this.
Okay, Bob, before you have to go, you had a question.
I was just going to advise that I have to leave now. Thanks very much for letting me participate.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Bye.
Okay.
Mark, do you have any insight onto Penny's question?
Yes, I mean, we have put an open-ended opportunity in the survey for any other comments. When we sort of designed the survey, we started with the tenants at the airport. We've actually done interviews with about 15 of them. And I'll give a little summary after I go through the work plan. Some ideas came up there, but I totally agree with you, Penny. Sometimes an idea, you know, from outside will spark an opportunity. As they say in the land grant, an ancillary activity at the airport. Doug?
I'm wondering if there's value in having an identification question. So Penny's earlier question makes me think that, is it useful to know if somebody's coming from out of region or if somebody is a current user or just has perhaps a business interest that they would like to associate with the airport in the future or something like that?
No, and I think that question that we can expand that question. We had put in there an opportunity to identify if they were a tenant at the airport, so we could expand the answer on that to be tenant, a resident of Port Alberni, or resident of Vancouver Island or mainland, for example. And we would have, when we get the responses in, we would have a distribution of where they're from. Correct, Andrew?
Correct.
If that's valuable, I think we can crank that in quite easily.
Yeah, no problem.
So Mike and Doug, maybe we should now go back to sort of our overall work plan. We can leave any questions you have on the survey open, and you know, if something comes up in your mind after we've talked about how we're going to approach the project, we can certainly crank those in. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So talking about the overall work plan, and I think some of the advisory committee has not really. You should have a copy of that with you. Our idea in terms of doing this, and the purpose of this call today, is to really make sure we're on the right track. What we're doing right at the moment is really gathering information. So between now and our target date of January 15th, what we hope to do is get the results of the survey. We'll put together some comparison airports. We'll do a preliminary SWOT analysis, and we'll develop what I would call a straw man vision, or three visions, and that will really be the background for the workshop, and that'll give you some, an idea of the regional context, the airport profile, how your airport compares with other airports, and then some possible visions for you to chew on. So when we do the actual facilitated workshop, which right now we're planning for February the 2nd, you would have some background material, you would have some alternatives, and hopefully we would go through the SWOT analysis together, agree on the constraints, et cetera, for the airport, and then start to develop a vision and your priorities in terms of what needs to be done with the airport to achieve that vision. So in terms of critical dates, we've set January 15th to distribute material for the workshop. I just heard that you wanted the survey open till January the 15th. So we probably will delay that a week, for example, so we can actually put the survey results into your material. And then the workshop is February the 2nd. Then about 3 to 4 weeks after that, we would come up with a draft report for your review. We would review that report, get your comments, and finalize that into a vision and strategic plan. So that's roughly the work plan. Maybe at this point I would open up to any comments or concerns or timetable concerns, and then what I'd like to do right after that is kind of give you a brief overview of what I've found with the interviews with the current tenants. So any comments on our timing, proposed work plan, anything else we should be covering, for example?
Well, certainly from my perspective, and I'm not speaking for the whole committee yet, but certainly from my perspective, I'm happy that you're leading the process, Mark and Andrew. Looking forward to contributing to it. I appreciate your flexibility to meet our needs and try and expand the results of that survey as much as possible. I think it's really critical that we're not going to get an opportunity to do this over, so we need to do it as well as we can this first time through. You haven't really articulated it, but I think I remember we were going to try and do a face-to-face meeting for the sort of the visioning, right? Assuming that Island Health will allow that to happen and we can get the right location and so on and so forth. But that's sort of what we're aiming towards, is to be able to do a face-to-face, right?
No, and that I personally would certainly prefer that. I think our plan is that I would be there. Hopefully in the meeting room, we would be able to have a Zoom in to that so that Andrew could Zoom in. I've also got some background ideas that, for example, one of the people I know is the deputy airport manager at Boeing Field in Seattle, who deals with a lot of from a manufacturing perspective, and we might have somebody else come into that workshop through Zoom, for example. So yes, we would certainly like to have a face-to-face meeting with all the protocols.
Okay, thank you. Shelley, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
I did, thank you. And I really am excited about this plan. And I think it's excellent to have these kind of goals. And in this, I guess my comment was more around content and only a suggestion and probably something that's going to be covered under these broad categories. But two suggestions. One is some information about potential strategic partnerships. Second is information, and I guess I just add diverse partnerships as well. And I think it's critical, given where we live, to, and Brandy can speak to this more than I, but to really ensure that we're incorporating First Nations perspectives and also resources and, you know, being inclusive. Because this is where we live, right? We're on territory. So anyway, and second, I guess second thing is also in terms of, and I'm sure you're already covering this, but providing us with some potential templates or best practices from comparable airports that have gone through this process, and hopefully come out the other side with some tangible results, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, so that we can build on people's successes. And part of that, of course, and I know you know this so well, is finding out what did not work as well, so that we avoid those rabbit holes and pitfalls.
No, very excellent comments, and part of what we owe you is some comparison airports, and hopefully I will be able to put in there, as you say, both successes and failures, so that we don't necessarily run down a road that doesn't need to be taken.
Dan, I can see you listening intently, but I haven't heard anything from you. Are you getting all your questions answered?
Yep, yeah, I'm listening. I got it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to add anything to this? Deb?
Thank you, Mike. I was just going to say, I always feel like I'm wearing my black hat, but when you look at the other side, there is a lot of people in the community who are not especially supportive of the airport. They call it Colson's Airport. We built the airport for Colson's. So I think if we're going to go through this process and do the survey, also have to be prepared to receive some negativity as well. And I don't think we've done a very good job of promoting the successes that we have had at the airport. So maybe this is an opportunity to look at that as well, trying to promote our successes and what we have achieved. Thank you.
Penny?
Thanks. Also, we're not a very large airport, so that has to be taken into consideration. What our capabilities of actually taking on. So a huge industry coming in might not be the best, most opportune use of our airport. We already have one large tenant. So really looking at what could a company partner marry with something like that also is important to keep in mind. Thanks.
Yeah,
No, and to respond to that, Penny, I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, the runway is 5,000 feet long. We are not anticipating building a 10,000-foot runway like YVR. So that to a certain extent defines the the capability of the airport and starts to provide the vision for the airport. And partnerships or industry, there needs to be a compatibility.
Shelley?
Thank you. I guess on that note, Mark and Andrew, I guess I'd be interested if we could have some information on potential, excuse me, linkages or synergy with other transportation modalities as well. As you know, we have the port here. There's other, and I guess with other industries as well. So that, you know, we're looking at how do these things connect in the short term, middle term, and long term. Is there some sort of way that we can build with those kind of big picture goals in mind for not just you know, the ACRD, but for our whole region?
No, and one of the things that that I see, you are a real transportation corridor. Somebody has said, well, it's the surf highway of Canada. Andrew and I have discussed, you know, how do we link tourism into your airport, and your first and all your discussion of First Nations, etc. I think there, you know, all those linkages, and then how are you compatible with other modes? Unfortunately, you don't have a railway running by like they do between Prince Rupert and you know, Prince George, but you certainly have a highway. And how do we make synergies that work off each other?
For sure. And on the railway note, and you'll probably hear from some people that you know, people have not given up on that as being revived. Well, you know, how realistic that is, I'm not sure, but you know, who knows if we build the connections that may be supportive of some form of rail in the future. So I don't think we can discount that. We have all of the infrastructure there, but you know.
I would just add that, yeah, if that is, if integration with the port is something that you're interested in, I think that's very valuable for this discussion, and to at least highlight at the strategic level. I don't know what exactly off the top of my head the opportunities might be related to like intermodal mix and yards related to the port and that sort of thing. I don't know what the future plans for the port in terms of goods movement are, but it's definitely a really valuable thing to highlight for sure.
And I'm of course on the Port Authority, and I would just encourage you to include that discussion with Port Authority people in strategic discussions. And you know, I'm just one voice, of course, and it's the whole committee that will decide the scope.
Mm-hmm.
Penny, you had one more comment?
Just that the port is also an opportunity for tourism coming and going because of the cruise ships that have come.
Right.
As soon as we get the vaccine out, right?
All right.
Okay.
So, Mark, back to you.
Okay, so let me just, what I'd like to do is just give you a little bit of feedback from my initial interviews with some of the tenants. I mean, first of all, from my perspective, knowing, you know, number of airports in BC, you're already starting with a bit of a leg up. I mean, you have an anchor tenant, you have diversity, you have a very good brand new runway, you've got new lights, you are working on you know, in your approaches. So, I mean, compared to Tumbler Ridge, where I was recently putting in new lights, I mean, all they really have is medevacs. They have nobody at the airport. So, I mean, count yourself lucky already. The trick is how do we take it further? Recently, there's been quite a few new leased lots, which shows an increased interest in your airport. Your airport is located in uncontrolled airspace. That's actually quite a
advantage when you compare to, say, the lower mainland for flight training. I mean, already that's being taken up by your glider operations. We talked about your anchor tenant. Yes, I had a good conversation with Wayne Coulson. One of the things that he would like to see is ability to have customs clearance, so he could fly one of his 737s directly from the U.S. Into Port Alberni. I've already initiated some discussions with one of my retired individuals from CBSA, one of my friends. I think there's a glimmer of hope there to do it on a pre-arranged basis, but we won't guarantee that till we have something to deliver. Already, your runway is being used by the military. Viking Air is coming in to do testing on their new 400 models. So your airport is starting to get known. Can we get Viking Air to move a manufacturing facility there? That's a possibility. Your airport is probably one of the most diverse operations for a mid-sized airport, from your 737s, your Hercules aircraft, right through to gliders. I see Mark Fortune sitting there. I mean, that creates an operational issue for him. And actually, several of the tenants said that there should be some, we might call them multi-use operational guidelines. And there was some discussion around that. I know Mark is already aware of that, but that is more of an operational issue than a vision, but it's something that everyone should know. Yes, quite a few of them said, yes, we'd like water, sewer, electricity, but they were also aware that that costs money. So our strategic plan needs to take that into account, but recognize that there has to be a cost benefit. Quite a few of them indicated that they like the fact that there's a on-site caretaker. Makes them feel more secure with respect to parking their aircraft. So I think that's a positive note. Some people said there should be more visiting aircraft services, such as internet, etc. One of the things we want to encourage, which is happening a little bit now, is private jets, now that you have the capability. And there has already been some traffic there to do sports fishing, visit properties, etc. I'm sure Alberni Valley is not really on many people's radar as that possibility, but that's another challenge. In terms of obvious uses for the airport, there's sort of three elements: increased flight training, more maintenance facilities, and we talked about, I think, Debbie, you're asking what air cadet training. We know the military that has an air cadet operation, they train maybe 500 air cadets in the summer. They do it at Comox, but those, they're being discouraged from another number of airports. That may be a possibility, but we have to balance that off with other uses. One interesting fact is that one of your new tenants is relocating from Squamish, and he wants to set up a flight school because Squamish as an airport is very hemmed in. And he really sees the Alberni Valley Airport as a fantastic opportunity. We talked about tourism, obviously an objective. And finally, one individual described the airport as a wonderful facility. So that just gives you a very brief snapshot of some of the views of the airport. And that's why Andrew and I wanted to sort of move that into a little bit more of a survey basis, because it will allow you as a committee to have some not necessarily analyzed data, but data that's kind of factual in terms of people's opinions to help guide the vision. So I guess Mike, just, that's sort of what we have right at the moment. Maybe we could close off by any other comments or any other questions that should be on the survey, and then any other comments about whether or not we're headed in the right direction.
Okay, I see some nodding heads, which means that yes, you are headed in the right direction at this point, and we're looking forward to participating in this next phase. I know that. I mean, all of us will, I'm sure, fill out the surveys, but we'd love to see a much broader group of participants in the survey as well. So it'll be important when that goes live and we get that out as far as possible. Because it's only when we get that kind of response that we get a bigger perspective on what it is that people think they're looking for. I mean, each of us have our connections, but we certainly don't represent the entire valley or the entire region. So there's a lot of thinking that needs to go into it.
So in terms of the survey, have we agreed that it will be open until January the 15th? And then Andrew is going to set it up so that it can be on a link. And then in terms of distribution, if it's on the link, then if we've got put in that question with where they're from, we should be able to present the data in a relatively clear format.
Okay, so I think I understood most of what you said, because you go in and out of your microphone there. Pat Deacon, you had a comment that you wanted to make?
I did. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Couple of things in terms of forward thinking with the airport. I also think it would be important to connect with some of the anchor tenants at the food hub. I think their hope is, so for example, Cascadia Seaweed, Effingham Oysters, Nova Harvest, all of those groups are hoping for or to increase their target market, and the shipping out of the airport at some point may be something of real interest to them. Also, I think the SAN group may end up with some very high value products coming out of their new mill or new fabrication facilities, and it may make sense for them to look at exporting those, or at least moving them out of the value by airport. So those were just a couple of items. I think you've touched on everything else that I am looking forward to seeing or exploring through through the survey and through your compare and contrast work.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Michael, did you have any comments that you wanted to make?
Yeah, sorry. I found there were some good questions in the survey for the stakeholders. I just wanted to make one comment, and I don't know if there's enough room in the survey or it exceeds the scope of what you're looking for, but most of the airports I've been involved with, from large to small, the ones that have been successful have really tried to engage in a value prospect for the community and touch points with the community. And I was wondering if there was any sort of area that you were going into to explore those avenues.
Andrew, did you want to respond to that? Since you're the survey guy.
Well, maybe I can start on that. Michael, are you thinking like having the theme of the airport, or really be the airport serving the main industries of the town?
Both of those, but sort of, somebody commented earlier that the optics are that it's Colson's airport. So how do you get a value prospect whereby the local community feels that it's their airport? And what's your branding look like? How do you engage the community beyond just the major stakeholders that you're drilling down with now?
No, and you're absolutely correct. I mean, the vision needs to be owned by the community, and you're right. I mean, we sort of started this survey based on looking from the airport out, and what you're saying is really we should get the community looking. What's the value of the airport to the community? The sort of the economic impact aspects. And I don't know, Andrew, whether we have a question there that we've sort of asked the question, are they aware of the airport? But maybe we can modify one of those questions to say, how do what value of the airport is to you? And it's a hard question to ask.
It is, and I understand that, and it's above my pay grade. That's why I was asking you.
Okay, and Brandy, you had a question or a comment?
More of a comment. You lost people when they thought it was their airport. They came through, tried to make a vote through all three committees to have, the races out there. And that's when they felt they belonged part of it, because they were out there at least one weekend to enjoy it. And then the ACRD went against the committees, and then there was lawyers involved of why they couldn't have it out there and why they couldn't fix it. So at that point, everybody just turned their back on all these committees and said, you know what, it's not working. It's not, oh my God. So it became Wayne Colson's airport the moment just regular people got to go out there and use it. So it was more like a lot of people just wrote it off, and I got half my council looking at me going, why are you going to this? Why don't you just go ask Wayne what he wants? And I have to agree to them, because he's the main user out there. The only time any of us at Hupekchisiut use the airport is for the medical fly out or a bush fly out, or I'm stuck in the back end looking for a painted turtle. So, it used to be we were out there every year for the drags, and Hupekchisiut had our big sign up, and we were planning to dance at it and show community. It was all ours, but now it's not. So as a whole community, we all felt rejected the moment they couldn't have the drags there. So we're not allowed to use it as a people. Nobody goes out there anymore, and the only reason why they're heading out there now is because they want a Christmas tree. That's it. And then they'll just go and remember when they had drags out there. So that's when you lost the people of the valley, is when they stopped using it. So now you have to find a way to bring them back into the airport. Because most of them are gonna fill out this questionnaire going, have you asked Wayne's permission yet?
Hey, thanks, Brandy. Interesting comment. One of the largest users of airports on the island is FedEx. And they don't use the Port Alberni airport. They fly into Nanaimo and then stick their stuff on a truck and truck it around from there. Maybe we could be expanding our users in the airports. But anyway, that's getting us further along. That's getting us to the visioning piece that we're going to be talking about in February. Mark and Andrew, did you have anything else that you need to do with the committee in terms of setting up for the next stage, the next step?
No, I think if we can finalize I think we've already got those changes to the survey. We will finalize that with you, Mike, because I think that we have the committee's input. And then we will work with Janice on on how the distribution works.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think that brings to an end this session. What you wanted to do, Mark and Andrew, right?
No,
okay.
that's correct.
Okay.
And I guess as a final note, if someone has a question, please, my cell phone is open.
Okay, thank you. And I don't believe there's any unfinished business and there is no late business. So then we get to the end of our, Penny, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to point out that there has been a couple of new lease agreements that are being signed out at the airport right now. So that's really positive news. So there is new development that's happening out there. Wasn't on our agenda, so I just wanted to point that out, that the regional district did approve these very recently.
Maybe the next time we get together, there can be, specific updates on any changes that have occurred to the airport in the interim. All right, then let's adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Okay, and seconded by Shelley. Thank you very much. All in favor? Okay, we won't see each other, I'm sure, until after Christmas. So enjoy the survey when you fill it out, and have a great Christmas, everybody. Keep it safe. I know that my whole family is in, my grandkids anyway, are in the Lower Mainland. They're trying to figure out how or if they can get to Port Alberni to see Grammy and Grandpa. So I don't know whether it'll happen. Might just be Bonnie and I. We'll see. Okay, so, thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much.
Any suggestions of places to send this survey? Should be sent to the regional district, or where should that go?
You can certainly send it to me. You can send, and I'll pass it along to Mark, and we'll just make sure that we are get as complete and robust list as possible.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Thank
Happy
you.
holidays. Safe
Well, everyone.
Holidays.
Yep.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Okay.